Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to another video in our YouTube WordPress plugin building series. It's really like a beginner's series for building, but we decided to go with YouTube. Anyway, I wanted to kind of jump in and say, I know the last video was a little complicated and I kind of tried to crunch a lot into a small window. And in this video, I want to do kind of an advanced feature, but I'm going to probably split it into two parts because I don't want it to get too complicated. And really what we're going to be focusing on is the fact that these videos, if you remember correctly from an earlier video, when we run our import from our, let's go over to the importer page. When we run our import from here, it imports all the videos, like 50, and then when we output them on this videos page, on our /videos page, it outputs them based on how they were imported into our database. It actually does not import them or does not show them based on their actual dates they were published on YouTube. So if you were to delete this video, for example, and then reload this page, this video would appear all the way at the bottom of the list at the right because it's reading it item by item in the database. So right now they're in this order in the database, like 387, 388, 389, because that's the number of posts. But if this is no longer 387 and then we delete it and then we renew and this video gets added, it's going to get added as the like 425 or whatever, and so it's going to appear at the bottom even though it's the most recent video. Right? And we built this problem on purpose so we could fix it right now. So back in Visual Studio Code, I actually wrote a little block for this, and I'm going to show you. I wrote it on my desktop. Once again, I'm on my laptop, so I'm just going to kind of bring it over. We need to go into our admin, and we need to go into the importer call. I'm going to put this at the bottom of the importer call because I just want to show you an example of how this works. It's a kind of advanced, and that's what I said, so I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. All right? And I said, hey, subscribe, will you? Did I already say that? I don't remember. Anyway, let's get started by opening a new PHP block. The reason I'm doing this is because I just want to separate this into its own thing so we can totally get a view of it, and then we can move it to another page because we're not going to leave it in here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get all the posts so we can actually scroll up and steal that code. It's just like one of these right here. We can steal a for each with getting all of our posts. That way we don't have to write it again. And let's just go for 100. That would be the 50 we have. We could remove it if we have a lot more posts. You could change it. Remember, you can always change that. I just do it because we're not going to have more than 50. Okay, so we're getting every post now. We don't want to do anything with it at the moment. We just want to get rid of that. And so now we have a for each that's going to go through all of our vid posts. And now that's all we have in this little PHP block we just did. And this is going to fire every time the import page loads, by the way, because this is just test code, okay? So we're getting those now, and now we need to create an array, okay? And if I know that I haven't really gone too much in depth on deep PHP, but an array is just a list of items being held in a variable that we can access. And we're actually going to create a multi-dimensional array, and I'll show you why. So we only need to create two variables for this. And the first one is going to be called vids ordered. And we're going to call that as array, okay? And like I said, you can look up arrays. Arrays are just a way of storing many items into a single box. So we can, like if we have numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we can put all those in a single variable and then call to them. Or say we have different cars like Charger, Challenger, whatever, Model A. We can put all those into a car list and we can have them all in one variable versus different variables. So that's what vids ordered is going to be. And then we're going to just do a general count. And in most programming tutorials, they just do I as the count. And I could, actually, I keep saying I could comment these, but I'm going to, because I'm uploading these to the GitHub, which has been updated, by the way. It's up to the last video. So this holds all our timestamps and video IDs. Okay, and I'll show you that in a second. Keeps count of the item we are adding information to. All right. Those will make sense in literally 2 seconds. This video is not going to be as long as the last one. I'm going to try to keep it closer to 10 minutes. Okay, so inside of our for each loop, we've created the variables we need now. And as usual, we're looping through our items. And the first thing we need to do is we need to establish our vids ordered array as a multi-dimensional array. This is I could explain it kind of like this. So in an array, you have items, like I said, and by the way, programming starts at 0, not 1. So it would say vids ordered 0. And that's how it's looked at as an array. And it says, okay, what's in item slot 0? Think of it like a spreadsheet with rows and columns, and it's rows. Row 1, what's the first item in the column? It says Charger. Then it says row 2, what's the item? It says Challenger. Row 3, cell A, it says it's in Model A. Okay, a multi-dimensional array says what's in row A, column B. Okay, there's multiple columns available in each row. I'll show you what I mean. So, and I'll output it so you can see it as well. So, we're going to say vids ordered and we're going to open square brackets, which is how you access an array in PHP. And we're going to input our count. Right now our count is 0. So it's saying vids ordered at item 0 needs to equal an array. So now we're nesting an array into an array right here. So it's now item number 0 is an array. Okay. And then in here, what we need to do is we need to grab the published at date. If you remember when we created our videos, we have a published at date when they're input into our database. This is where they get renewed. And as you can see, we have video title, published at. We've been working with these in all these tutorials. Published at tells us when the video is actually posted to the YouTube channel of Motor Trend, who's we're working with. So what we're going to do, and as you recall, we're looping through each post. So right now we're looping through the post, and we just created a multi-dimensional array at 0. So what we need to do is add the published at date to this array so later we can sort it and figure out what video goes where. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to create a new variable, and we're going to call it sort date. And we're going to say sort date equals each post. And then remember, we're grabbing the published at date. Okay, and that's it. So sort date now equals the published at date. All right. And that's going to grab the published at date from the database for this particular post, which is like, I'll show you the date and time, how it outputs it here in a second. And now what we have to do in PHP is we have to convert it into a what's called a date time variable, so it can be sorted by PHP. And we're just going to, right here, we're going to do some commenting for ourselves and say, capture the ID of the post and its published at date. So that way we can sort them later. So now that we have sort date with the time in it, we're going to create a new variable called stir to time. And let's just call it stir to time format. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, this is a PHP call called stir to time. And this creates a time variable out of a string variable, because right now it's stored as a string in our database. And all we have to do is put the sort date in there. And now stir to time, this variable here now contains a time format of our published at we pulled from our database. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we need to format it. I know, like I said, this could be a little complicated. Don't worry, I will explain it in the end. I'm trying really hard to make these as simple as possible, but it is a little difficult. And I'm new at making tutorials. So, okay. The next one is we're going to say now we need to date time format this. We're going to format it in a way that we can sort it. So we're going to create a date function, which is another PHP function. And this is how we can tell it the date that's being read. Now, if you recall from YouTube, it kind of returns a weird timestamp. And I wish I had an example so I could show it to you. But it has like, it has the month, let's see, it has the year, the month, the date, the hour, the minute, and the second. I'm pretty sure is how they do it. And so we have to format that. And you guys will be able to take this from the GitHub. So don't worry too much about the specifics, but just know that this is a way in PHP that you can format date and time variables. So now what we've done is we've told it, okay, we want to create a date time format, and this is how our variable is going to come in, and then it asks you for the variable to convert to this format, in which case we're grabbing that one that we just created we converted to a date and time, and now that's stored as a date and time. Now let's just quickly go over this, what just happened. Okay, so the first thing is, we looped to get all of our posts, and we set 100, our videos, and then we created an array, a new array that's going to hold all of our timestamps and video IDs. Then we just created a counting variable, just an integer that keeps count. We created a for each that goes through all of our posts starting at 0 from our database, so it gets our first video, and then it creates a multi-dimensional array, meaning at item 0, it creates a new array, so we can store multiple columns of items in array slot 0. Then it said, here's the part that's difficult to understand. The rest of this should be a lot simpler. First thing is we had to create a variable. We could have called this anything we wanted, called it sort date, and we grabbed our published at variable from our database that YouTube passed to us and we stored when we imported and renewed our videos. Then we created a second variable where we convert that published at, it's a string in our database. It can't be read as a date by PHP, so we can't sort it. It had to be cast with a function called stir to time, and then we had to pass that variable. Now we don't necessarily need this variable. We could have just put this directly in here. I'm just showing you as a three-step process, but we could have put this directly in here. And then we create a third variable, which PHP basically says, here's how I want the date to be read, because that's how it was imported by YouTube. And I was able to write this based on how the date's being imported. And so now PHP is able to understand how the date is being imported and is able to create a valid sortable date out of this and store it in this variable. So now what we can do is we can actually add this into our database. And there's a way to do that. We can say add this item to our, or not our database, our array. It's not an array yet. So in order to add an item to the beginning of an array, or to an array, to the end of an array, sorry, in PHP, you actually do what's called an array push, okay? But in this particular example, we're not going to be pushing anything into here. We're actually going to be just adding items in the multi-dimensional. Now that we have a item created at 0, we can add items into it as we please. We can add, like I said, what's called multi-dimensions. And the way that we do that is just like this. We call our array, okay, and we give it what's called a hash, and we say, okay, so in this, we want to create a date time. Remember, you have to use the square brackets. And actually, no, we have to give it the item first, sorry. We have to say what item in the array, item 0, because that's where we're at. Then a second set of brackets, and we have to say we want to create a slot called date time. And guess what we want that to equal? Yep, you probably guessed it. This date time format right here. So now we have that stored in item 0 under the hash date time, and we can access that now at any time in this array. Then we're going to create a second array multi-dimensional item behind that one in the same slot, in the same number, but we're going to call this one post ID or the ID. Okay, and this one's going to equal each post ID, and that gets the post ID. Like back over here, it gets like number 387. You can see in the bottom left corner, 388, 389. It's getting that. That's what this is. It's getting the post ID because we're looping through our posts. And now it's adding both of those into a multi-dimensional array at item 0 at hash date time. It's creating an item, a multi-dimensional item, and it's giving in that date format we just pulled. Then, whoops, I got $2. Then it's creating the ID, and it's adding the post ID, and it's going to loop once we up the count. We say I++, not equals. Okay, so now we say I++. So here's what's going to do. Loop through, get the post at 0. It's going to create a multi-dimensional array with a number of 0, because that's how it's starting at the very first one. And then it's going to do everything I explained about creating or sorting the date. And then it's going to add that date to item 0, date time in a date time format. Then it's going to add to item 0 the ID of this post correlating to this time, and then it's going to up the count to 1 because remember it starts at 0, and it's going to loop to our next post. And we have 50 posts, so it's going to do this 50 times. And every time it's going to get a new sort date time because we're at a different post. It's going to create a new multi-dimensional array item at 1, 2, 3, 4, and each one of those items is going to have their own date time and their own ID. Okay, we're already almost done, guys. This is, just bear with me. We're on our way. We're real close. We are pretty much like at the end here. So here's what I want to show you. I want to show you what happens when we print. You can do print R, and this is a printing, this is different than echo in PHP. This prints a readable format of an array, so we can actually read what's inside of an array. So let's go ahead and output vid ordered, okay? And let's take a look at what it looks like. So back in our administrative, or back in our importer, because remember we put this at the bottom of the import. Okay, check this out. We now have a readable array multi-dimensioned, and I'll easily be able to show you now. So we have an array, item 0. Remember, we created an array, but inside an array, item 0, we have 2 array items in that. This is a single block right here. See how it says array 0 or array 0, and then it has an inner date time and ID. Remember how we created those? So array item 0 contains a date time of this and an ID of 436. That's this post in our database. Then number 1 contains a date time of this and an ID of this. And it does that 50 times, but it will be 49 because it starts at 0. So we've gathered all 50 items from our database, and now they're accessible to us by their date and time and their IDs. And why or how is this valuable? Well, now we can actually sort them by their dates, and their IDs will be associated with them, and then we can output all of our videos, gather the posts based on these IDs, knowing that the date and times are sorted. So let's very quickly sort them. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to run an echo, because I want to show you guys what it looks like before and after it's sorted. And we're just going to do a bunch of line breaks. And the reason we're doing this is because, like I said, I'm going to output it before the function gets ran that we're about to write, and then after, so you can see what it's doing. All right. Now we're going to write a very quick function. And actually, guys, I didn't even write this function, just FYI. I was actually able to find it on Stack Overflow, and it works perfectly for what we're going to do here, which is sort array by timestamp. This is a very simple function on how to sort an array by its timestamp. So we're going to write a new function here, and we're going to say date compare. And then we need to pass two parameters into here, A and B. And I'll explain how this works really quick too. This is a very short function. It's only a couple lines. So we need to create a first variable called t1. This is time1 equals a stir to time function. We already used this. So this creates a time out of a string. And we need to say A, and we need to call in our time date, or date time. Okay, that's how it's stored in our array. As you guys remember, we stored the item in our array by date time. And then we have t2, and time2 is a stir to time as well, and it equals B date time. So this is going to take two items from our array and compare them together. Then it's going to return t1 minus, because once they're comparable, you can use them as t1, as you can minus them to figure out which one is greater time or less time. Then we're going to call in what's called a uSort, okay, which helps sort an array. It's a built-in PHP function. I'm not going to go in depth on how all this works because there's a lot of specifics about how all this works, but just know it's going to do exactly what we want it to do. And then we're going to do a date compare, and we're calling the function date compare because that's what we just made above, right? Now, last code, guys, last line. After the sort, I just want to show you what it looks like again. Okay, that's it. We're done. So what has happened is vids ordered gets outputted shown on how it's pulling from the database, or how it's creating by the time IDs. Then I just created a bunch of line breaks. Then I created an array, okay, that, or sorry, not an array. I created a function that compares items from our array and checks out their date times and sees which one's newer, and then sorts our array based on those. So this is going to go through every item in our array, and it's going to sort them based on their date and time. And it's going to use that doing a PHP called uSort method, which helps to, like I said, sort an array. So that's it. And now when we output it, it's going to sort them based on their date and times. Well, we can actually test that really quickly. Right now, they're going to be exactly the same. They're not going to be any different. Okay, I got that because I didn't put my semicolons after my stuff. Okay, so right now they're not going to be any different. We have both of these, and they're going to be exactly identical. 387 at the end, 387 at the end. They're completely identical. What happens, though, if we do this? What happens if we head into that database, we go to our posts, we go to our most recent video in the post chart, say like, it's probably like page 5. Let's see, I gotta find which one's the first page that has an item on it. I mean, has a video in my post table. Right here, Ultimate Adventure 2020, that should be the first one. It is. What happens if we erase this? Okay, actually, really what we should have done is delete all our videos and then renew them. That's really what we should do. And then we should import, so we have all the most recent videos. Okay, that's what we should do. That's the way we're going to be able to see this most effectively, because I haven't updated this in a while. All right, perfect. And then back here, we'll just go ahead and rebrowse this again and head to page 7. And that's where our first video should be. Right here. Classic clip, the rear engine, the Maserati. We should be able to go ahead and delete this. And then, like I said, it should remove from here. And then it's gone. Okay, it's gone from our database and everything. And if we were to refresh this page now, this would only go up to 48. That's because we just deleted one of our custom posts. Check it out. We only have 48 items now because we just deleted the truck and nothing has changed. Now we're going to renew our posts, and it's going to bring the video of the truck back in. And when we go ahead and look at our importer, when we look at our videos page, it's not going to be there because we haven't done it here yet. That's going to be the next video, is doing these videos based on their dates published, not how we have imported them. But I will show you, it is down at the bottom as the very last video here. Back in here, here's what you're going to find. Something different about this. It was able to sort it properly based on its date and time. In the first one, it did not. Here's how we can see that. Look at this. Item 525-220, 12-20-2020. So the items are not calling correctly. That's why it's putting it at the bottom of our list. Look, 12-17, 1215. This item should be the last item in the database, or should be the last item to be outputted because it's the most recent video. But that's not how we're calling it on our videos page. We're just calling them by how they're added. And when we renew a video, it adds it to the newest item, so it actually gets thrown down first as we read out our videos. Well, look at our second one. It changed. Look at the first item, 525. Look, 1220. And our renewed one after our function ran, check it out, 1217. 1220. So when we have this list now, we are going to be able to go back into our other page here and sort these items based on their dates rather than how they were called into our database. So this information is going to be in the GitHub. It's a really small function. I know it was kind of complicated with the time formatting part, particularly because PHP is so finicky about how you format time. Even somebody like me who's done it for like 8+ years, PHP is so finicky about how you do this part of it. So anyway, that's all it is. Okay, it's just going through, calling everything in, creating a multi-dimensional array, storing each item in the array as a date and a time, and we need the ID so we can grab the get the post from the database later. Otherwise we just have a bunch of times that don't correlate to anything. And then we're able to run a function called a uSort, and you can do more information on that, but here's the code, and you'll be able to get it from the GitHub and then be able to play around with it yourself. So, and it sorts all of our database, and then we have the renewed database. So hey guys, that's going to be it, okay, for this video. And in the next one, we're actually going to take this over to our videos page, and like I said, output them based on this information so that it's more user-friendly, more updated based on our actual video flow. So hey, if you guys like this, subscribe, will ya? And I know that this course wasn't designed to be a PHP course, but you kind of have to do PHP with WordPress. There's really no way around it when you're building custom functions, and hopefully you learned something cool from this. Anyways, hey, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.